There is something fascinating about the Tarot Arcana. The very same energy that can express itself as love, strength, compassion, or wisdom can, under different circumstances, become control, cruelty, weakness, or emotional detachment. So, where does the light end and the shadow begin? And perhaps more importantly, are they really two different things? Today, I want to talk to you about the light and shadow expressions of the Tarot Arcana. I hope this video will be interesting both to those of you who are just beginning to explore the matrix of destiny and to those who already work with tarot and want to understand the arcana on a deeper level, especially if you also work with reversed cards and are interested in exploring the most subtle nuances and meanings. But before we start looking at the shadow sides of individual arcana, I want to take a step back and talk about something I believe is essential to understanding the matrix of destiny, the philosophy behind the system. Because without this foundation, the matrix can very easily be misunderstood as a form of mystical fatalism or as a way of putting people into spiritual boxes and labeling them. But this is not how I see it. And I want to be clear about something from the very beginning. The creator of the matrix of destiny never went deeply into the religious or philosophical foundations of his system, even though concepts such as karma and reincarnation appear throughout the teachings. So everything I'm going to share with you today is my own analysis and interpretation. This is how I personally understand the essence of the system and how I explain it to my students and clients. At its core, the matrix of destiny is a system of karmic diagnostics. And although the word karma has become very familiar in Western culture, I think its deeper meaning is often misunderstood. We often use the word karma as if it meant punishment, revenge, or some kind of cosmic retribution. But in its original philosophical meaning, karma is much closer to the universal principle of cause and effect. The basic idea is simple. Our thoughts, our words, and our actions create consequences, and those consequences eventually become part of our experience, sometimes pleasant, sometimes painful, but always offering us something to learn from. Karma is not a system of punishment, it is a system of learning. In the deeper teachings of Hinduism and Buddhism, karma is connected to the entire cycle of rebirth. But even if we put those metaphysical questions aside for a moment, the essential idea remains very simple. What we plant today shapes what we experience tomorrow. And this is why karma is not the same as fatalism. It does not mean that your destiny is fixed, or that your entire life has already been written somewhere in stone. In fact, the idea of karma only makes sense if we have freedom of choice. Because every moment through our choices and through our awareness, we are shaping what comes next. And this is where the matrix of destiny comes in. The matrix is not a system that predicts your future, because from this perspective, there is no single predetermined future waiting for you. Instead, it shows you the energetic tendencies you were born with. It helps you understand the qualities and patterns you carry, and the different directions your life can take, depending on how consciously you work with those energies. In other words, the matrix doesn't tell you what will happen. It shows you what is possible, and it gives you the map. Another important principle that I can see reflected in the philosophy of the matrix is the idea of balance, the Buddhist concept of the middle way, which has a remarkably similar parallel in ancient Greek philosophy in Aristotle's idea of the golden mean. These traditions are not identical, of course. They come from very different philosophical and cultural backgrounds, but they share a strikingly similar understanding of something that I believe is essential to understanding the matrix of destiny. The same quality can become either a strength or a weakness when it moves into an extreme. The Buddhist story of the middle way begins with the life of Siddhartha Gautama, who later became known as the Buddha. According to traditional accounts, Siddhartha was born a prince and grew up surrounded by wealth, comfort, and privilege. His father tried to protect him from suffering, illness, and death, keeping him sheltered in a world of beauty and luxury. But eventually, Siddhartha left the palace and encountered what are known as the four sides: an old man, a sick person, a dead body, and a wandering ascetic. For the first time, he came face to face with realities from which he had been protected all his life. He realized that suffering, illness, aging, and death were not exceptions to human existence. They were part of it. This realization changed the course of his life. He left behind his royal life, his family, and his possessions, and devoted himself to the search for spiritual liberation. For years, he practiced extreme asceticism, fasting, self-denial, isolation, and physical exhaustion, believing that liberation could be found by completely rejecting the needs and pleasures of the body. But eventually, this path brought him close to death, and it was at this point that Siddhartha realized something profound. Neither extreme indulgence nor extreme self-denial could lead him to the truth. One path had kept him trapped in comfort and detachment. The other was destroying his body. The answer, he realized, lay somewhere between the two. This became the foundation of what is known as the middle way, a path that avoids both extremes and instead cultivates balance, awareness, wisdom, and compassion. And we find a remarkably similar principle in the philosophy of Aristotle, who described the golden mean. For Aristotle, virtue was not about living at one extreme or another. It was about finding the appropriate balance between deficiency and excess. Take courage. Courage is not the complete absence of fear. That can become recklessness. But courage is also not being completely overwhelmed by fear. That becomes cowardice. Courage exists somewhere between the two. Generosity lies between greed and wastefulness. Patience lies between emotional suppression and emotional explosion. Self-respect lies somewhere between arrogance and self-neglect. For Aristotle, ethical development was not simply about following a rigid set of rules. It was about developing the inner discernment to recognize what balance looks like in a particular situation. And I think this is a very important point. The golden mean is not a formula. It is a practice of conscious living. And this is also the key to understanding how light and shadow work in the matrix of destiny. Every arcana represents a particular quality of energy or consciousness. When that energy is expressed in a balanced and conscious way, it can manifest as wisdom, strength, creativity, compassion, or another positive quality. But when the same energy moves away from balance, it can manifest in two different directions. It can become distorted through deficiency, or it can become distorted through excess. And this is why I don't see shadow as something completely separate from light. Shadow is the same energy, but expressed out of balance. The healthy expression is the middle way. The shadows are the extremes on either side. Let's take the Empress as an example. The Empress represents nurturing, care, abundance, and emotional connection. In her balanced expression, she is loving and supportive. She is emotionally present. She creates a sense of safety, but she does not need to control the people she loves. But when this energy is underdeveloped, it can move towards emotional coldness, detachment, or indifference. This might be someone who is physically present, but emotionally unavailable. And when the same energy becomes excessive, it can turn into hyperprotection, control, and emotional suffocation. A person may care so much that they no longer allow the people they love to grow, make mistakes, or live their own lives. The energy is the same. What changes is the way it is expressed. The same principle can be seen in the Hanged Man. The Hanged Man represents kindness, compassion, empathy, and selflessness. In balance, this is the ability to genuinely care for others and support them without losing yourself in the process. But when the energy is expressed through deficiency, it can become cruelty, emotional numbness, or lack of empathy. And when it moves into excess, it can become self-sacrifice, victimhood, and inability to set boundaries, or forgiveness when accountability is actually needed. Again, the problem is not the quality itself, the problem is imbalance. And I would love to hear your thoughts. Do you believe that our greatest strengths can also become our greatest weaknesses when we move into extremes? Have you ever recognized one of your own shadows in this way? Share your thoughts in the comments. I would genuinely love to hear your perspective. And this is why, whenever I talk about the shadow side of an arcana, I'm not talking about a bad personality. I'm talking about the energy that has moved away from its natural balance. In some Matrix of Destiny traditions, you may come across the terms plus and minus energies. These terms describe the same basic idea, the harmonious expression of an arcana and its imbalanced expressions. For me, the word shadow goes a little deeper, because shadow is not something we need to fight. This is something we need to understand. The moment you begin to recognize your own shadow, you are no longer completely controlled by it. You begin to see it, and once you can see it, you have a choice. And choice is where the real freedom begins. So whenever we explore the arcana together, my intention is never to put people into boxes or tell them this is who you are. Instead, I want to help you recognize how a particular energy can function in your life. Where is it balanced? Where is it underdeveloped? And where might it be becoming excessive? The goal is not to judge ourselves. It is not to label ourselves as light or shadow. The goal is awareness. To notice how our energy is actually expressing itself in our thoughts, our relationships, our choices, and our everyday lives. Because the Matrix of Destiny is not about predicting your future. It is about understanding yourself well enough to consciously participate in creating it. If you would like to explore these ideas more deeply, you are very welcome to join me here and to become part of a growing community of like-minded, spiritually curious people who are exploring these questions together. And this is the idea I'd love for you to take away from today's video. The Matrix of Destiny, Tarot, and the philosophy behind them are not just tools for understanding ourselves. They can help us consciously reshape our lives and build the life and relationships we truly want. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. I hope to see you here again soon. Until next time.